Yep. Father, we thank you for the time that we have to come to study and learn. We do ask for your wisdom and your blessings on our country, for sure, for peace. We like peace and harmony, and you tell us to pray for that exact thing. So we ask for your wisdom as well by your Spirit to guide us into just the things that you have revealed to us in your word. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Okay, so let's see where we're at. We've been, I'm kind of delving a little bit into the New Testament today, but we haven't really got to the New Testament yet, really. But even though we've been, getting a little bit here and there, but one of the reasons that we're going to go into the New Testament today is we're going to go in there into the book of Hebrews.
Okay.
As the book of Hebrews quotes the Old Testament, okay? So we're going to kind of see the Old Testament lens, the Old Testament through the New Testament lens of the book of Hebrews, which is really, really great. I would have to say that Romans and Hebrews are probably tied for my favorite New Testament books as it relates to theological depth and precision. The way that the writer, we don't know who the writer of Hebrews is, handles some of the Old Testament texts is just incredibly precise. And
in Hebrews, it's very, very election oriented.
Oh, for sure.
Very.
Yep. And the way that they trying to understand, again, he's writing to the Jewish people. How do they understand their Old Testament works?
Take 15 seconds on who might have written Hebrews.
Well, what we do know is, and I have it here. I wasn't going to talk about it, but no, I skipped it. I have the book of Hebrews chapter 2, but scholars will fight about who wrote it because the phrase from Habakkuk 2:4, the just shall live by faith, appears in Galatians 3, Romans, and also in Hebrews. So they look at that as a trifecta of, whoa, well, Paul wrote Romans and Galatians. Wouldn't that make great sense if this was a nice trilogy of explaining the fruit of just shall live by faith? However, in Hebrews chapter 2, 3 and 4, it says there that the writer is saying, do you have it, Linda?
Oh.
I saw you sneaking around, which is good.
Put it in there. But my commentary says Apollos or Barnabas.
That what?
My commentary says Apollos or Barnabas.
Yeah, you have Apollos or Barnabas as generally being some of the options.
How shall we escape if we neglect such a great salvation? It was declared at first by the Lord, and it was attested to us by those who heard. While God also bore witness by signs and wonders and various miracles, and by gifts of the Holy Spirit distributed according to his will.
So this guy, whoever he is saying, it came to the Lord, and it was attested to us by them who were the witnesses, right? Well, Paul says, I didn't get my gospel from those guys. I got my gospel directly from the Lord. I wasn't secondhand. So this writer is saying, I basically got the truth of the gospel secondhand. It came from the Lord, then it was attested to us by them. So that would seem to eliminate Paul, because in Paul's writings in 1 Corinthians 15 and 2 Corinthians and other passages, he's like, I'm not inferior to them because I got it firsthand. I'm not trusting in secondhand information here. So that's why I think Paul is eliminated from being a possibility. But Apollos, Barnabas, you can write an article on it and you'd be just as possible as everybody else.
And that leads me to another question. I can't seem to find anything about Apollos.
I mean, he appears, besides like I think Acts 18 is where he appears.
Yeah, biblically, I'm just talking about. And so, it's dealing, I don't know. Hey, obviously not an apostle, but very, very, on fire for Christ.
Yep. The reason why they like Apollos is because when we meet him, he is debating very, very well from the Old Testament about the person of Jesus, right? And so they like that, like, oh, and he's got a great grasp of the Old Testament, so he must be the guy that writes Hebrews. I mean, it's all just pure speculation. It's reasonable. But
Martin Luther was the first one to suggest Apollos, so that was pretty much
very late in the game, right? Yeah. So on your sheet, 2 pages today, what I wanted to do was, Romans 8 has been kind of a theme verse for us in the sense of this phrase is we've been learning over and over, the sons of God, right? For all who are led by the Spirit, the sons of God. And he goes on and on in talking about, what I wanted to highlight here is verse 16. The Spirit himself bears witness with our spirit that we are children of God. And if children, then heirs, right? Heirs, and then heirs of God, fellow heirs with Christ, provided that we suffer with him in order that we may be glorified. And so, we always, I'll talk about this in the sermon today, but, I look for words, right? Okay, I look for words. So we have heirs, 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 and then we have suffer before glory, right? And then in verse 18, for I consider that the sufferings, there it is, are not worthy compared with the glory. So you see heirs, heirs, heirs. Oh, nice, I get an inheritance. And then, but we also see, well, before glory, what comes before glory? Suffering. Okay? And that's just the nature of living in this human world. And so we'll talk about that. So what I want us to see here is we're talking about this inheritance. And then I gave a couple others. Galatians 4, you're no longer a slave, but you're a son, right? And then here you have sonship and heir coming together. So we have there the sons of God in Romans 8. Sonship equals heir, okay, or inheritance. Galatians 4 says the same thing. If you're a son, then you're an heir. Galatians 3, you're Abraham's descendant, which is an offspring, then you're an heir. Titus 3:7, being justified by his grace, we've been made heirs. If we endure, we will also reign with him. So here you have the idea of enduring, which is by definition suffering. When you're enduring something, you don't endure a vacation generally unless you're Bob and Jackie in Hawaii, and then they have to endure a vacation. But generally when you endure something, it's negative. So Acts 20, I commend you to God in the word of his grace, which is able to build you up and to give you the inheritance among all those who are being sanctified. So just some ideas that we've been talking about. Now, test question for us. What is our inheritance?
Eternal life.
Eternal life.
Man, you guys, I guess I gotta do this again. You guys are giving me like the second grade answer.
What was the question?
Who's the best? Jesus. Who should I do? Jesus.
You're always telling us we're too scriptural anyway, so we're going back and forth.
Well, I'm not scriptural, Jerry, but I want a little bit more advanced. Okay.
Advanced scriptural.
So, to say heaven.
Rulers.
Okay, I like that. Okay. Our inheritance is heaven. Is that true?
It's
Why
part
is
of
that?
the
Why?
inheritance. It's part of
Eternal
the
life.
inheritance.
Okay. See, now what would a Jehovah's Witness say to this?
Who cares?
Jerry, you need to get this down, Jerry, so when they knock on the door.
I'm in the gated community. Jehovah's Witnesses don't come to my door. That's it. I don't have to worry about it.
And you're not evangelistic, Jerry? Very disappointed. Your deaconship is up again for grabs. Again, Jerry. It's like every week. Okay.
I can have it anytime.
Why would the Jehovah's Witnesses be irritated with this, and why are they right? When they go out and they talk to you, what do they talk to you about?
The new heaven.
Paradise. It's here.
The new heaven.
Not necessarily.
I've never talked to
I mean,
them.
they have the picture of, they have
Obviously, we don't know.
on the front cover.
What's the place that they go? The Kingdom Hall, right?
Yeah, okay.
So when you talk to them, Jerry, if you ever do, don't talk about heaven, because in reality, the meek are going to inherit what?
The earth.
The earth. Heaven is. We can talk about heaven as a place out there. In reality, heaven is not our home. I mean, our citizenship is in heaven, but that's because the kingdom that's heaven originated is going to come and invade this physical planet. So the kingdom is going to be on earth. heaven is not our final destination. Earth is, God made earth for us. So our sphere of existence is earth, okay? Not heaven in the sense of, like, if we're thinking out there. Now, Jerry, what you probably meant, or what you really meant, was the kingdom of heaven here on earth, right? Oh, helping you out. So that we're the remnants. We were made specifically for the earth, okay? And that's why the meek are going to inherit the earth. The kingdom's going to be on earth, and even when the new heaven and new earth, we're still on earth, right? Living in the New Jerusalem, where? On earth. So heaven is people who die now. They get to go to heaven. Their spirit goes to be with God. Okay, but that's not their final destination. They're coming back to get their bodies, right, and coming back to earth. So even there, don't think of heaven as being our destination. That's all. It's not. Okay. So kingdom.
Our final destination.
Correct.
And in fact, within the inheritance program, that's a process that we're going to go through.
So if you were alive, let's say that Jesus, that we're post-trib, and we survive the tribulation, and Jesus returns. Will we ever get to heaven? No, because we'll be changed. We'll get a new body. We'll be able to go into the kingdom. We'll never even have gone there because we never died, right? Okay. So it is true that when we die, we go to heaven. But for those people that exist there, that's not the goal. The goal is not heaven. Okay. So
I've always looked at it as inheritance as ruling with Christ here.
yes, so let's go back to that. So rulership, okay, now we're talking our inheritance, okay. What else? Rulership, expand on that.
We're above the angels, right?
I think we will be. We'll see that today. I think so. We will be.
Judges.
Yeah, rulership, let's put judging in 1 Corinthians 6, right? Judging or adjudicating, I like that word better.
Maintaining God's precepts, laws, all that stuff.
So, let me ask you a different question. According to the Old Testament, Psalm 2 primarily, what is Jesus' inheritance? We've had this verse over and over and over and over and over.
He's the Son,
He is the Son.
Lord of heaven and earth.
Well, specifically,
Jesus is going to be with the Father.
okay, yes, right? He says, ask of me, and I'll give you the nations for your inheritance. That's Psalm 2. That's speaking about. So, if for us, we get to be co-heirs, that's what Romans 8, or joint heirs, depending on how you want to. So, our inheritance is going to be the nations, which is rulership, judging, in the kingdom, all these. We're going to, sorry, Jerry, we're going to eliminate that one.
Seems very materialistic.
But it is heavenly, because, right, our citizenship is in heaven. Jesus says, my kingdom is not of this world. It doesn't originate here. He's bringing, we say in our prayer, your will be done, what? On earth as it is in heaven. So we're asking for the heavenly authority and realm to come down to be experienced here on earth. Okay, and that's so the nations, that's ultimately what we're after. So, in here, Revelation 21, this is after the kingdom. Just look at verse, you can see here, he who is seated on the throne said, behold, I'm making all things new. Also he said, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. And he said to me, it is done. I'm the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give from the spring of water of life without payment. The one who conquers will have this heritage, or this inheritance, and I will be his God, and he will be my son. So here again you have this sonship, or this, we are going to be children of God in that regard. And this is after the 1,000-year reign. And if you continue to read in Revelation 21 and 22, you have the 12 trees, right? And they provide fruit, and the leaves of the trees heal the nations. So here again, you have that aspect. So even in the eternal perspective, our domain is still earthly. Okay? The heavenly Jerusalem comes down. We live there, but it's coming down to the earth. And so here, I just was giving you this aspect that you have this, he will be my son, or the sonship idea, and the inheritance being connected together, even after the 1,000-year reign. Jesus says in Revelation 3:21, the one who conquers, I will grant him to sit with me on my throne, as I all conquered and sat down with my Father on his. 2:26, the one who conquers and who keeps my works until the end, to him I will give authority over the nations. See, it's consistent that why do we get the nations? Because Jesus gets the nations, and we're co-heirs. And he's going to allow us to sit on his throne just like he got to sit on his Father's throne. And so in Psalm 2, it all comes full circle here when in Revelation 2, when Jesus says this, he says, I will give him authority over the nations. And if you connect that with chapter 3:21, he's saying our ears should ring like, oh, that's Psalm 2. Ask of me and I will give you the nations for your inheritance, my son whom I've begotten. And Jesus says, hey, if I get it, you get it.
Point of clarification, you always said before the nations were 70, is that right?
Well, in Deuteronomy, the Tower of Babel, yes.
Okay. And I guess at this point, is it nations the entire world, including the Israel?
So what the kingdom is going to look like is a little elusive in the Bible. What we do know is that Israel will be the head nation because Jesus will be ruling from Jerusalem. And and from, you know, all these promises that God made in Deuteronomy, I'll make you the head and not the tail, you know, you don't need to borrow, you'll lend, you know, you'll be, so all of the covenants that we see in the Bible, you know, the Davidic covenant, the new covenant, you know, the covenant with Abraham, all that finally gets fulfilled. See, it's left unfulfilled in a physical way because of the land and everything else, that we get it spiritually. The covenants are very spiritual, but there's also the land covenant in Deuteronomy 30. God says, I promise I'll give you this land to your descendants and it'll be yours forever. So that is still true. So when Jesus comes back and he rules there, remember we talked about him having all these governors and there's a lot of administration. Well, we know that from Matthew 19 that he says to Peter, you and the 12 apostles will sit on 12 thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel. So that's going to be one of the nations, and it's divided into 12 tribes again. All the apostles will be there ruling. That'll be their locale. Yours might be somewhere else. I don't think we're all going to be in Jerusalem. I think God's going to say, hey, Bob, I want you over here. Get back to me. You know, your job is going to be over here, you know, and report back to me as you adjudicate whatever it's going to be.
We have the New Jerusalem, so that's a bigger. Is that encompass everything?
Well,
New Jerusalem.
Let's be precise. There's the Jerusalem of the kingdom, right?
Yeah.
Where Jesus is, and then there's the New Jerusalem that comes out of heaven. So the New Jerusalem is describing in Revelation 21 the one that comes out of heaven.
Okay.
That's eternity. That's or at least post 1,000-year reign. But there is going to be the real Jerusalem that is going to be changed. We see that in Zechariah 12. Remember when, or 14, I think it's 14, where Jesus comes and the Mount of Olives splits and a huge valley comes, and then we have Ezekiel 40 through 48, which is the new temple that's done there, that's millennial, and then there's a river that comes flowing like out of the ground, and it flows to the Mediterranean Sea, which they don't have that today, and the other one flows to the Dead Sea, and then the Dead Sea becomes alive. This is all like, I believe it's Zechariah 14, where, so the New Jerusalem is going to look different. That temple that's described is like a 1 mile square. It's really, really big. Think about 1 mile square. That's the walls. So how long is a mile from here to where? Maybe sushi restaurant? You know? So you go that way, and then you go a mile that way and a mile this way, and that's how wide just the temple complex is. It's really, really huge. And then the mountain comes up, right? There's going to be a huge mountain. There's going to be the topography is going to change.
But it's not going to be like the Dome of the Rock. It's not going to be.
It'll be there, but that's not big enough. I mean, the Temple Mount is 35 acres. You know, how much is a square mile? How many acres? Hundreds, right?
40.
How much?
600.
There you go, 640. So triple, you know, well, times it by 20 as it expands out. And then you have, like now you have a little, you don't even really have a hill there anymore. You have a little bit of a hill there, and then you have the Kidron Valley on this side, and then you got this little hill. But imagine that being expanded out and a huge hill coming like this with the river coming down going that way, and a river coming down going out Kidron Valley towards that. It's going to be totally changed.
So when, you were always good showing us time frames. When you said that was afterwards. Can you show us a time frame of where you see
This
it?
is post.
Like the timeline that you were
So-
seeing before?
Let's go like this.
So
Let's go 2020, and then just, let's just say the tribulation begins right now. And so we have the 7 years, and then you have the 1,000-year reign of Jesus. And then you have the Revelation 20, Great White Throne, and then here you have just eternity. And we say eternity because the eternal state, we don't know what's happening after this. So this 1,000 years is where we're going to be ruling and reigning, at least in this very specific kingdom where Israel gets to have their heyday. All the promises that God made to them are finally fulfilled during this period.
So why does that end?
It ends because sin hasn't been dealt with yet.
Oh.
Right? There's still sin here. The devil is cast, he's imprisoned here. So
when we're reigning, then we are judging the non-believers in their sin? I don't quite understand that.
see, we need to, I hate this word. What's the difference between judging and adjudicating? Okay? Let's really get.
I have no idea.
Look up the word adjudicate in
It may be slow because we're not.
I understand. Well,
Adjudicating.
your phone should still do it, right? You still got service with your network.
I don't know that one, it says.
Adjudicated
I need
isn't
Wi-Fi.
like a
You're gonna have to work on that.
mediator. It isn't more of a
Yeah, it's
mediator.
pronounced
Right here.
decree by judicial sentence.
There you go. That's what we like. I like the word decree. It's this idea of judging. We tend to think of judging good and bad or ruling, like, hey, I'm judging this sinner, like a judge would in our system.
Right.
That's really,
That's
this is the better word. Like when Paul says, don't you know you're going to judge angels? I don't picture us, let's say that oftentimes a judge will pronounce a sentence, right? On a person, like, okay, the jury convicts them, hey, come back for sentencing. Oh, by the way, as a judge, I'm giving you the full 35 years. What happens after that?
They're released.
Well, they go to prison,
Oh.
right? For 35 years.
Oh,
The judge isn't having any interaction with them, right? So, if we judge the angels, yeah, we could go, oh, here, when Satan gets released for a certain period of time, again, out of prison, then he gets captured, and then he gets finally thrown into the lake of fire. Well, let's say we're there. Okay, Satan, I pronounce the lake of fire judgment on you. What happens after that? We're not judging them anymore. It's done. But the Bible tells us that we're going to be adjudicating, that we're going to be decreeing things because we're part of the divine council. So that's going to be forever. So that's where we're going to get this idea of us being elevated above the angels. Mike?
Quick question. I see the word judging, obviously reading through this and understanding our inheritance, so on and so forth, judging the angels. But take us through either Hebrew or Greek, and how do you come up with adjudicating? And
Well,
the definition of judging in our translation.
it's more contextual. The word is krino. It's a word for judging, and it means all of that. It means pronouncing a sentence. It means being like, on that day we will be judged according to our works, right? So it has certainly the word is one word. So it has a whole range. Just like, again, what's the root of this word? Judging, right? So we understand that the word judge has a variety of nuances to it, and the Greek word is the same. So what I'm saying is, I want to remove the word judging because we tend to think of it as judging somebody that's evil. But if we're adjudicating, can we make decrees based on the Lord and being part of the divine council that would set angelic beings in motion and they're still being good? See, I want us to get away with, we are going to, when Paul says that we're going to adjudicate the world, hey, don't you know you're going to judge the world? And don't you know you're going to judge angels in 1 Corinthians 6:3? We tend to think, oh, I have to go, judge between good and bad. Right. It's not necessarily that. Because, again, with the fallen angels, it's a one-time deal. All right, guilty, punishment, lake of fire. Is that all the extent of how we are judging angels?
Hope not.
No. I think that's what I'm saying. Context would require, and as we've been studying for 30 weeks, this idea of a decree that we are going to be part of the divine council, and we're going to be making decrees just like the other sons of God were, the angelic sons of God in Daniel 4. So we're going to be up here and going, hey, there's going to be lesser beings where we're going to say, okay, Yahweh has said, I'm in charge of this. I need you to go take care of this. I need you to go take care of that. That's just part of ruling. See, rulership isn't necessarily just judging.
I like this in
bad
the
people.
English dictionary to make a formal decision about something.
Yeah, to make a formal decision, to make a decree. Go ahead.
So I come to a conclusion that since we're going to be in this situation as reincarnated,
Don't use that word.
I mean,
Scratch that off the record. I'm going to cut that out of the video.
it was just a mistake on my part.
Okay.
Oh, you don't want to use that.
In our new body.
There you go.
Okay.
Our new administration.
Our new administration, and then you just waved your hand down below that and said, all these folks, so to speak, are these people in fact these nations during this 1,000-year reign still in their human form?
Okay, I'll move this over. So, let's put, for all you pre-rapture people, or pre-trib people, let's put the rapture here, all right? Pre-trib rapture. That means new body, okay? That means boom, done, you're forever glorified, okay? Never to be able to sin again. So we go, you get raptured up into heaven for that short period, but the goal is to come back, right? Too bad, but we're coming back. We're coming back to earth with Jesus. And then there's people that are alive at this time who are believers that get to go into the kingdom. So they're not immediately given new bodies. Why? They're alive. New bodies are given to that one generation at the rapture. Okay, this is 1 Corinthians 15. We shall all be changed. Okay, this group. Okay, well that group, they're not promised a new body. They're going in, as well as the Jews who survive. You know, the remnant. This is Zechariah 11, 13, something like that. Where there's a third that survive. So they survive, and there's also some Gentiles survive. So the believers, they get to go into the kingdom in their natural bodies. Well, why would God allow that? Well, so that they can have more kids. God wants a lot more kids, so He's going to allow us to see Jesus ruling and reigning on earth during 1,000 years with kids being born in His kingdom. Satan has been removed, the demons have been removed, they've been imprisoned. But sin is still there. How?
Human nature.
Human nature. God says, I'm going to show you that sin is very persistent. And even though you can't blame the devil anymore, sin still is there in the human nature. That are those people, those kids who are born, still are going to have the sin nature like Adam does. That's why Jesus rules with a rod of iron. God doesn't rule heaven with a rod of iron. He doesn't need to. When there's a rebel, He kicks them out. Okay? But Jesus is going to rule with a rod of iron over the nations. So are we. That's right. He says, I'll give you authority over the nations. We're going to adjudicate and decree and make formal decisions for the divine council, right? Because we're part of God's divine council, all over the whole world for that 1,000 years. Sin's still there. But as we've said before, hey, there's a porn ring going on. Jeff, I want you to go take care of it. Go stop it. Jeff shows up in authority, squashes it. Hey, these guys are getting out of hand over there. Kathleen, go take care of it. That's your job. I need you to take care of this. You need to represent me around the world. Okay? As these people are growing in population, they're going. Who knows? We don't have a lot of information. Isaiah 65:20. Does anybody have the New Living Translation? Let's read that passage. With as many different versions as we have.
What was it?
Isaiah 65:20. This is this little hint.
New English translation?
Sure, why not? Let's get a variety.
Or New Living, you said.
All of it.
New English. I'll go New English.
Okay, what do you have?
ESV.
Let's read the ESV. So listen.
And what verse?
Isaiah 65:20.
No more shall there be in it an infant who lives but a few days, or an old man who does not fill out his days. For the young man shall die 100 years old, and a sinner 100 years old shall be accused.
Accursed.
Accursed.
So he says, hey, in this kingdom, this idea of infant mortality, not going to happen. A young person is going to be considered 100. So they're going to be living a long time. So he says 100, no big deal. So, but
The sinner will be accursed.
the sinner will be accursed at 100. Okay, what do you have? New?
It's
Still loading?
same type of thing. Oh, you want to read the verse first? Never again will one of her infants live just a few days, or an old man die before his time. Indeed, no one will die before the age of 100. Anyone who fails to reach the age of 100 will be considered cursed.
So you see this? So it's really interesting. The Hebrew is extremely difficult. Okay, that's why you have this variety. Anybody have the New Living Translation? Or if you really want to impress, the Living Bible. Anybody? You can probably find that on the internet. Just put in Isaiah 60:25, the Living Bible. That's the one that I find interesting. What do you have here?
It says
I have ESV.
Okay.
the entire. It says in Genesis 5 says the entire lifetime of Adam was 930 years.
So what else? What other translations do we got?
I can probably look up more.
Somebody can look up.
And I
You
people
can
take
say New English Translation. Is that what you want?
No, New Living
New
Translation.
Living.
NLT.
What I really want is the Living Bible.
Okay.
What do you have? What do you have,
NLT.
Jackie?
NIV.
What is it?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Jackie's going to read that.
Okay, never again will there be in it an infant who lives but a few days, or an old man who does not live out his years. He who dies at 100 will be thought a mere youth. He who fails to reach 100 will be considered accursed.
Okay. Okay, Living Bible. We got that yet?
I think I got New Living Translation. I think that's the one.
The Living Bible. It's like
The Living Bible. No, I
the
don't.
Living Bible.
Well, I could buy that.
It's not a translation.
If I had that Wi-Fi, I could buy that.
Okay.
I got it.
Go ahead. Let's hear it.
Ready.
Just give me another second.
Will you read it, Mike, without your mask? Real.
Yeah.
Watch out, Dave. Better run for cover.
I'm getting in there. You want the Living Bible?
The Living Bible.
Okay.
The Living Bible.
Come on.
Risk management.
Jackie, be nice.
What's the verse? Isaiah 65:20.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Mine.
Oh man, you know, I gotta do this myself.
Tree of Life version.
Yeah.
That's what my Living Bible says.
Oh my
What's
God.
it say?
Tree of Life version. I don't think what is that?
And this is just.
Even mine doesn't have the Living Bible, just Living Bible. You saying the Living, so that's why I was wrong.
Here we go.
Okay, we're ready.
Okay, it says, this is, no longer will babies die when only a few days old. No longer will men be considered old at 100. Only sinners will die that young.
Cut to the chase, make it simple.
Yeah, so the Living Bible is interesting. That it's a paraphrase, no doubt. But what it's interesting in that what it's saying is that the only people that die during this are sinners. People that, it's almost like if we understand it's a paraphrase, okay? So just, Isaiah 65:20 is hard. This whole, there's not a lot of information about the kingdom, but the idea would be, hey, somebody's born, what are we out doing? We're out preaching the gospel, right? These people need to get saved. They're not born saved, they're born sinners like we are. And we're out there and the gospel's going out, we're adjudicating, we're decreeing, we're ruling, we're making sure that the gospel is being told to all the nations, okay, during this period. They need to get saved just like we do now. We're going to be in our new bodies forever, okay, permanently. But they are not yet. So as they get born, the sin nature tries to expose itself. Basically, according to the Living Bible, they have 100 years. If at 100 years, they've decided they don't want to follow Jesus, cursed, killed. Done.
Gone to hell?
Yeah. Their spirit, right? Because remember, Hades, the people who die from all the way down, they're down in Hades. They're still in Hades during this time. They haven't been resurrected yet. They're going to be resurrected over here when Hades comes and brings them out. But that's at the end of the 1,000 years. So the great white throne judgment is here, not here. So during the 1,000 years, sin is still there. but it's being pushed down and suppressed with an iron hand. And then at the end, God says, well, I'm going to show you guys. Guys, counsel, come here. And we're going to go over there, and he's going to say, look, you guys might be wondering why we waited so long. He goes, well, I'm going to show you the sinfulness of sin. Okay, I'm going to let Satan out and his horde. We're going to let him out for a little while. I want you just to stay back and let him have his way. Okay? So, you're the divine counsel, guys, just let it be. And
7 years?
no, it just says for a short time. And I think that the short time is 3.5 years. And the reason why is because that phrase appears in Revelation before, because in Revelation 12, Satan comes down because his time is short, which is 3.5 years. So he gets another short. I could be wrong. He's released for a little bit of time at the end of the 1,000 years. He goes out and he deceives the nations again, and a whole group of them come up and they come to Jerusalem to fight Jesus.
But that's at the end.
That's at the end.
Not any of the part of that 7 years before.
It's at the end
Nope.
of the
No,
thousand.
it's got nothing to do with the tribulation.
Nothing of the tribulation. Satan is bound. He's released again. And you have to say, why would you?
Yeah.
God says, he says, I want to show you the sinfulness of sin. So there's obviously going to be people who have been born who are less than 100, right? If everybody is you have until 100 to decide if that's true, then anybody that rebels there is going to be less than 100 because they haven't been saved yet. Because anybody over 100, they got killed at 100. Follow the logic?
Yeah.
Did you say no?
I said, yeah.
Oh, good. Sure.
Be careful.
So
Very
when
simple.
Satan is released, there's Jesus, gentle Jesus, right? And they still rebel. And God says, enough's enough, and he sends fire down and wipes them all out. And then we have the great white throne judgment. And sin is then forever dealt with. All the people who are in hell, they get raised from the dead. They get new bodies. They're judged at the great white throne, and then they get cast into the lake of fire forever.
Then the New Jerusalem.
And then, once sin is dealt with, and all of it's ended, and all the unbelievers are put out, the only thing left is righteousness. God says, okay, now I'm going to clean up this earth that has been contaminated. I'm going to bring the new heavens and new earth down, and now we have the eternal realm, Revelation 20. 2 chapters.
No more pain and no more crying.
No more crying, no more pain, any of it's gone. All things have passed away. Go ahead.
Just real quick, you know me. So you got that 1,000-year reign, and your opinion is to expose the deeper sin. You got scripture that
Well, I think there's
back that up.
there's a lot. I'm not saying that's the only reason.
It's not the only reason,
No.
but
What
I just want scripture that backs that up. What is gonna, take place for that 1,000 years? Your opinion, is that your opinion that it is to show us in our human nature just how
I would
deeply
put-
embedded sin is?
that's more of a logical deduction.
Logical deduction.
Because the purpose of the kingdom is for God to fulfill his promises to Israel. That's the main reason.
That's the
But someone might ask, well, why is Jesus ruling with a rod of iron? We know why, in the sense, we know that, we might not know why, we know that he is, because the Bible says, right?
Okay.
He rules. So sin is still here, and we might say, well, why is God still allowing sin during the kingdom?
Right.
What I'm telling you is there are verses that say there is idea that the strength of the sin is the law. That's in 1 Corinthians 15, part of that. But to me, I think, again, a logical deduction would be, I don't think it's
We
unbiblical.
went over this before.
It might not be biblical, but it's not unbiblical.
Right.
Okay?
We went over this before, and it seems to me without sin being still alive, as it were, Satan had no reason to come out of the...
Agreed. That's why, Satan doesn't tempt God, right?
No.
And he doesn't tempt us because we're in our new bodies, which are unable to be tempted anymore because we're made like God. So again, that's where true freedom is, to be bound in righteousness, to be a slave of righteousness like God, as God can and be tempted. So Satan's not coming down to tempt us. We can't be tempted. But he's coming down to tempt those who are living on earth that are still in their natural bodies.
Well, just kind of implies, but it's just kind of an observation. You think about God created the world. It's chaos. There's really no law and order. He picks Abraham. He brings forth the law through Moses. He then has the theocracy, where basically he rules as king.
Yep.
Then basically, Israel's kind of like a republic, for what it's worth, ruled by law. Here's the law, right? And then, but there's these kings, these earthly kings that miss the mark. Now, now as we talk about the church age, we've got a republic, which happens to be America, but it's not a world thing. We're under a republic, but then there's all these oligarchies. And once the world becomes a full oligarchy with a whole different set of morals, because in all reality they're jettisoning God's moral, and then they have this new morality. So when it comes to the end of Satan's reign, as an one world thing, you've got this complete false iron fist, because it's not going to be nice to live under that reign, right? A one world reign. It's not going to be good. But then Christ now, in this reign, it looks like he's bringing back the kingdom. He's going to rule with an iron fist, which Satan's going to attempt to do near the end of his reign. Follow what I'm saying?
The 7 years. This is Satan's kingdom right here.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been ruling in a sense from the time that Adam and Eve fell, but this is the height of his kingdom, is the 7-year tribulation. So this is Satan's.
What kind of signs can you expect, do you think? Like, is there anything we can...
Well, yeah. The Antichrist is called the man of what? The man of sin. He's also called the man of lawlessness. Okay. So, and a whole bunch of perdition, right? Yeah. So, you have a lot of words which it's going to be do what you want. We think about anarchy.
Like now?
Right? Yeah. Well, this is not even, right? Think about just the glimpse that we're getting. Think about that 7-year period. Okay. So, when Jesus is ruling here, now granted, the only temptation that we're going to have is going to originate from what's inside. Not us, but the people. So there's going to be no external temptation, Satan, demons, etc., which that is clearly what we have. They're going to be unleashed. Revelation 9, I mean, they're going to be unleashed. It's going to be, can you imagine the lawlessness? This is nothing. Nothing compared to what will come when the restrainer is removed. Okay? That's 2 Thessalonians 2. That's when God's restraining. This is what it looks like when he's actually actively restraining. Imagine that restraint gone. And then you have all the hordes being released to increase the temptation. But all that's not going to happen here during the 1,000 years. It's simply going to be, no way do I think that the sin here will be the same as it is now. No way. Because all of the external temptation is gone. But sin will still be there. I think that's why logically God is saying, I'm going to show you, I'm going to let you see what sin does.
We're going to see a different form is what we're going to see. As a witness here on the earth in my...
Just to finish my thought, what I'm getting at in the last phase here before the final judgment, before the new heavens and earth is, he's basically clearing away the path. So there's less argument against the fact, because now we're being talk about a relationship being drawn. Now we're ruled by the personal creator of the universe. Yeah. He's our
righteous Jesus, right?
Righteous Jesus during that time. And so there's just this taking away of all these political structures to where now it's like, it's just, it is sin, and it is sin within us, and there's no excuse.
Part of this, Mike, goes back to, we often say, well, man isn't really as bad as they are. Okay, that's more of a liberal, not politics, but a liberal theological viewpoint. They believe, as I asked last time, in the goodness of man. Okay, and they said, if we only had the right government, okay, we would show you how good man can be. If we only had the right situation or paradise, right? If we had the right utopia, mankind's goodness would shine. Okay, that's not what the Bible teaches, and I think part of my opinion is God's going to say, let me show you how wrong you are. I'm going to have my son, gentle, righteous, holy Jesus, ruling and reigning within a perfect environment. The lion is going to be laying down with the lamb again. Nothing will harm in my holy mountain, says the Lord, right? He's going to remove all of this. He's going to create this return to Eden, right, which is where it started. That's kind of where we're going, this Edenic paradise. And he's going to say, watch, sin is still going to try to corrupt it. I'm showing you the sinfulness of sin. That yes, I'm going to give you a perfect environment, and the sin that dwells in the heart, even without any external temptation, I'm going to show you that it's still going to creep up, and it's still going to try to dominate.
I'm just saying, this all takes you back to exactly that. As I went through it, I realized this is all a return to, well, I don't want to say plan A, but the original idea of being
The original idea.
of being made in God's image and having that communion in the garden and sharing, or your concept of sharing in the divine counsel.
I hate to say it. Don't throw anything.
Uh-oh.
It's still going to fail. Why? Not because Jesus has any failure. Of course not. Sin.
Yep, that's the problem.
It's going to fail.
Now, during that time, we're going to be ruling with him, right?
Correct.
Now, it seems like it's kind of backwards to think we're supposed to be getting our reward in ruling, because that's a administrative.
What do you want,
type
Jerry?
of function. I want to sing praises. I want to sing praises.
He wants to just sing.
You want a gold?
I just want to sing.
You want a castle made of gold?
You just want to be singing up there praising God.
We don't get a reward until the judgment.
No.
Jerry don't want to do anything.
This
Now, come on.
This Revelation 20 Great White Throne Judgment is only for unbelievers. We're going to get, when we are raptured, we're standing before the judgment seat of Christ. That's when we get our reward here. And then our reward is forever set for what we're going to be during the kingdom. This Revelation 20, when it says they brought out the books, this is only unbelievers. Because why do they bring the books out then?
See what they've done.
Yeah, but wouldn't there be believers during that time period?
Well, let's just focus here for a second on the Great White Throne. It says Satan is cast, he's thrown in the lake of fire, right? Where the beast and the false prophet are, right? Present tense, they've survived in the lake of fire. And anyone that doesn't believe the lake of fire is eternal, that they are conscious. They get thrown in here. Satan gets thrown in there where the beast and the false prophet have been or are for the last 1,000 years. But then it says, and then all the dead were raised. Hades gave it. Correct. They were looked to see whether their name was in the book of life. It's not, because the believers have already been, remember, I believe Adam will be in the kingdom. He gets resurrected. There is a resurrection here of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, because he says in Matthew 8, hey, you're going to sit down at the table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob during 1,000 years. So the only people that get raised here, and then they say, hey, by the way, is your name in the book of life? No. Well, then they opened up the book and they were judged. So according to Luke 19 and some other passages, the reason why their books are open is that the level of punishment they get in the lake of fire is determined on what's written in the books. There's different levels of punishment. Jesus says, woe to you, right, Sodom or Capernaum, because in the day of judgment, it's going to be worse for you than Sodom and Gomorrah.
I always thought lake of fire meant it was all
No.
over.
He says, some of you will get many stripes, some of you will get less stripes. Okay? You have this theology about the different levels of judgment, which happens here based on the books.
I would like to know, because the question comes up, what about all those people that died before Christ and before we had salvation on the earth, when basically men were condemned, right?
I'll give you some verses to look up because I don't have time to go into it.
Okay, you don't have to go into it.
Okay.
I cut to the quick on this. That involves the books being open.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, that's all I wanted.
Yep. Psalm 19, we have Romans 10, 14 through 18, Romans 2:12. There's all these passages that speak about.
That answers that question.
Yep.
Are there miracles still being performed in that 1,000 years?
Don't know. Bible doesn't say. Doesn't say. What we do know is in Joel 2, as well as in Acts chapter 2, a lot of people I think misinterpret Joel, because Joel 2 says in that day there'll be dreams and visions. And in Acts chapter 2, Peter says, this is, hey, what you're seeing here with the speaking of other languages and other things, this is what was spoken of by Joel. Well, I think that that's in reference to the kingdom. So that would be the only answer I'd give you, is that during the kingdom, the young men dream dreams, visions, stuff like that. That'll be during this period, not now. It's not church age stuff, because you can see clearly that it's in reference to the day of the Lord, which is the kingdom. But Peter's making reference to it. God is it's not a fulfillment. Acts chapter 2 is not a fulfillment of Joel 2. Well, it's a connection to Joel 2, which is the way that they interpret things. They had some, the early apostles had some interpretive, not challenges. They would interpret things in a very selective group. What he was saying there was, hey guys, Joel 2 is talking about the new era. That's what's going on now. The new era has begun. So he's not saying that it's a complete fulfillment of Joel 2. Look at it. There's no evidence of that anywhere in the chapter. But I think that the miracles, the dreams, and the visions are going to happen here in fulfillment of Joel 2.
How about the explosion of Iranian believers right now who are claiming dreams and visions of Christ?
Well, I'm not saying that God can't send a dream to somebody.
Fair enough.
Okay. He can do whatever he wants. But I don't think that's a fulfillment of Joel 2.
He appreciates you telling him that.
Yes. Well, God can do whatever he wants. But if you look at the context of Joel 2, it's after the tribulation period.
All right.
Okay? The sun will go
Yes,
dark.
The Lord. Yeah. It's all over.
It's after.
For sure. Yeah.
But again, God can send a dream anybody he wants. But I think it's going to be a continual ministry during here because of that.
Just another observation I need to get in on judging, adjudicating / decree. We will all, in regards to all that, we will be teachers for those.
For sure.
That are
a lot of people
trying to deal with their sin. Correct?
Yep.
Okay.
There'll be a lot of people who, well, again, anybody that's born is going to need to hear the gospel, right? They're not born saved, even during the kingdom.
We will be I just wanted to throw that out for everybody.
I want to read to you something here.
Where?
Zechariah 14. Okay. So I'll just read this. Zechariah 14. It's really, really neat. He says,
what verse?
We'll start in verse 1. He says, Behold, a day is coming for the Lord when the spoil taken from you will be divided in your midst. For I will gather all the nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the houses plundered, and the women raped. Okay? 7 years, tribulation. Okay? Half of the city shall go out into exile, but the rest of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Then the Lord will go out and fight against those nations as when he fights on the day of battle. Okay? End of the tribulation when Jesus returns. On that day his feet shall stand on the Mount of Olives that lies before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall be split in two from east to west, a very wide valley, so that one half of the mount shall move northward and the other half southward. And you shall flee to the valley of my mountains, for the valley of the mountains shall reach to Azal, and you shall flee as you fled from the earthquake in the days of Uzziah king. Then the Lord my God will come, and all the holy ones with him. Okay? That's us. As well as, we are called the holy ones. We've talked about the Kedoshim. We're called the holy ones, as well as the angelic, the divine council, the good guys. The good angels are also called that. On that day, there shall be no light, cold, or frost. And there shall be a unique day, which is known to the Lord, neither day nor night, but at evening time there shall be light. Whatever that means. Okay? On that day, living waters shall flow out from Jerusalem, half of them to the eastern sea, which is the Dead Sea, and half of them to the western sea. It shall continue in summer as in winter. And if you go to Ezekiel 40, you'll see a connection here. And the Lord will be king over all the earth. On that day, the Lord will be one, and his name one. That's pretty awesome. The whole land shall be turned into a plain from Geba to Rimmon south of Jerusalem, but Jerusalem shall remain aloft on its site from the gate of Benjamin to the place of the former gate to the corner gate in the tower of Hananel. It goes on, and it shall be inhabited, for there shall never again be a decree of utter destruction. Jerusalem shall dwell in security. This is where there's a plain, and then there's the mountain of the Lord right in the middle. So the topography is going to change. Let's keep going. This is talking about the tribulation. Okay, go to 16. Then everyone who survives of all the nations, okay, this 7-year tribulation, anybody who survives, who makes it through, which is only going to be at the best half. We know half of the world is going to be judged, and then of the half that are remaining, which ones are believers? Because only believers cross this gate into the 1,000 years. The rest of the unbelievers get wiped out at that moment. So he says, then everyone who survives of all the nations, remember, the nations are still surviving, that have come against Jerusalem shall go up year after year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Booths, the Feast of Tabernacles. During the 1,000 years, all the nations, they have to come up to Jerusalem, or send a representative, to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. Now listen to this. If any of the families of the earth do not go up to Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, there will be no rain on them. That's ruling with the rod of iron. Hey, Mondo, I didn't see such and such nation. Go announce to them, go decree to them, they're not getting any rain this year. Because they didn't send a delegation to come celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles.
County sanctions.
Yes.
And you have to wonder how they can make that choice with Christ reigning on the earth. You have to wonder, come on.
We know why. Sin.
How did you even get there?
See, you're proving my point. God is saying, I'm going to show you the sinfulness of sin. You think, what? If the family of Egypt does not go up and present themselves, and on them there shall be no rain. There shall be the plague with which the Lord afflicts the nations that do not go up to the Feast of Tabernacles. Now we have a plague. That's called being ruled with a rod of iron. Yeah. This shall be the punishment to Egypt and the punishment to all the nations that do not go up to keep the feast. And on that day, and it goes on, okay? So my point in sharing that is to say, sin is still there, potential rebellion is still there, we still have to adjudicate and to announce and maybe put forth the plague or the lack of rain. God says, go out. Your job is to represent me out there to the nations. See, the nations haven't been eliminated. Those that survive during this period, that's our inheritance. Jesus' inheritance says, I'll give you the nations, right? That's why in Psalm 82, God had given the sons of God over the nations, right? These angelic beings. They rebelled. Okay, God says in Psalm 82:6, I said you guys are all Elohim, you're sons of the Most High, but you are going to die like men. And then in verse 8 it says, arise, O Lord, and reclaim the nations. Take your seat among the nations, because remember, in Deuteronomy 32 and Genesis 11, at the Tower of Babel, God gave the nations up to these guys, and they rebelled. God judges these fallen angelic angels and says, you guys were unworthy. I got another group coming in to rule, which is us. We're going to be elevated to that place of adjudication over the nations. And we're going to have to announce the plague or bring the plague, or you know what I mean. I'm giving you like all we got as it relates to the Bible to some of these things. We don't have all the information, but we do have something.
Now, with that explanation, though, you can imagine how terrible that the process to wipe out the believer in that second half of Revelation, because
here
it's got to have Satan very upset, because first and foremost, you know, he hates humans.
Oh yeah.
And he's starting with no unbelief. They're all the unbelievers, right?
Who?
The ones that are left, because they're going to be raptured before.
No. Okay. Good. That's a great question, Jerry.
Yeah, it is a good question.
Once the rapture happens, you're correct. At that moment, there's no unbelievers left on earth.
Right.
Zero.
So how can he start?
So what he does next,
144,000.
bingo, in Revelation 7, he immediately saves 144,000 Jews who begin to go out and evangelize, 12,000 from each tribe.
Right.
So we also see in Revelation 7 that there's those guys are very successful in creating believers not only among the Jews but among the world. So in Revelation 7 you have this great multitude. It's a very specific phrase, Greek phrase in the book of Revelation called the great multitude. You have the great multitude, you also have the earth dwellers, you have a variety of phrases. When they come here, they get saved in here. So when the end comes, as the Bible says, all who survive get to go into the kingdom. So there will be believers, and there'll still be unbelievers at the end. The unbelievers are eliminated, and only the believers of both groups, the Jews and Gentiles, get to go into the kingdom. So the kingdom starts with all believers, just like the tribulation starts with all unbelievers. And then kids are born. And again, kids aren't born saved. So even believers can have unbelieving kids. We know that, right? So as people live a long time and produce, again, hundreds of years, who knows what the age of bearing is?
Will we be in a dormant stage if after we're raptured until the 1,000 years start? What are we going to be doing?
Well,
We're gonna be reigning.
We're not reigning until afterwards, or do we reign?
the theory is, depending on your viewpoint, is you get to go to heaven for 7 years in your new body, and you get to hang out there until the tribulation is over.
Okay.
If you're a post-trib person, well then the rapture happens here, you get your new body, you go up, and you come immediately back down. The yo-yo theory. Okay.
I like the idea of go to heaven for 7 years and come back and then we'll be rulers, right?
You get your heaven, Jerry, right there.
That could happen. It could still happen in the next 10 years.
Good.
It could happen.
Yep. So,
Twinkling of an eye.
all right, man.
So we're gonna do this one.
Want to do this?
What do you think? Should we do some? Well, we can at least intro a couple things here.
It's your fault.
Let's since we are, this is connected. This is like the introduction, all right? Okay, because what we want to remember is that Jesus he's a co-heir. I find that. Think about that. A joint heir. Now, granted, he's the top. We know that. But he invites us to be a part of his...
Everybody, red alert, get out.
Sounds like pipes to me.
I hear Sarah's
Sarah's running.
running.
Oh, must be the fire alarm.
I was just gonna say, yeah.
She might have turned it on to show some things downstairs, and
So she was just going in the
she'll go silence it.
kid zone. She was just going in, so if she triggered something.
Hopefully.
Now we know what it sounds like.
She's downstairs.
She did go?
She ran down.
Okay, that's good. So hopefully she'll silence us. So let's yeah, thank you. That's great. Let's make this a little bit bigger here, since we do have a couple minutes before we get into understanding Jesus as our older brother.
Has he done this at all?
We got the first few verses. Okay, so let's do this here for a second. This is going to be Revelation 20. This is going to be 21 and 22, which is the eternal. We'll just put eternity. We don't know exactly what that looks like. Okay. So if we come back here to the 7 years, this is the 1,000. We could just describe all this, but I'm trying to think of, there was a couple things that came up that I wanted to clarify. Anyway, I forgot now what I was after, but as you guys are thinking about this, what other questions come up?
I'm curious of the opposition during the 1,000 years. Or like the opposition towards Christianity now and the world towards us. What would you think of the
The only opposition is this. And I would say
So it's not from people? Or?
it's personal in the sense that I think about if you are in a if you have a secret, okay, secret sin, right? But you're surrounded by a whole bunch of believers. They're going to go, I can't say that out loud, right? Because I'm going to get persecuted, or I'm going to get punished, or I'm going to get judged, or whatever. So any sin that does occur there will be no open rebellions. Like now. This is where, in Hosea and other passages, the glory of the Lord will fill the whole world, the whole earth, as the waters, as the sea covers the
So
earth.
it's kind of flip, because I feel now like you got a handful of Christians and then you got...
Correct.
the world.
100% flip.
Okay.
And it's going to be even more flip, because now we have, not only do we have human sinners, but we have the spiritual realm, the wicked, demonic, satanic realm. So we have them against us. Okay? Here, there's going to be these few individuals with no satanic, demonic realm against, we'll put Jesus as the king here. Okay? Jesus, and then we'll just put us down here like this. So, if they do have it, they're going to go, I can't expose it. They're going to fight it. Not so much, think about an unbeliever, okay? Or even as a believer right now, okay? Even as a believer, because we dwell in this fleshly body, we have the Holy Spirit. These people, the believers, will have the Holy Spirit. But we also fight against not only ourselves, but we fight against the demonic realm, okay? That's going to be removed. So these people who are believers are still going to struggle with temptation. To the degree that we do now, no, because the spiritual realm is removed. Right? But they're still going to have struggle because sin dwells in our members. Okay? And it'll dwell in their members. It won't be in ours because we're going to be, I will say this, we're up here. We're in a different plane. We're in a higher level. Now, down here...
With resurrected bodies?
Correct.
Okay.
Here, let's do this. Believer and unbeliever. The believer is going to have the power of the Holy Spirit. He's going to have a new nature. He's going to be like, yeah, sin. I still realize that I have temptations, but whatever. It's not as a huge deal. The unbeliever is going to go, I don't like being ruled. I don't like and what's this human guy telling me what to do? Who is he? You imagine, think about that. Think about that, still that sinful desire for autonomy. And now you have a fellow human, we're going to be on our glorified bodies, but we're going to go around adjudicating and saying, you can't do that. And he's going to say, who are you? And you're going to say, I'm part of the divine council, buddy. I'll tell you who I am. I'm here with the authority of the king. And I'm a ruler, and you will obey. Period. And we'll be able to say that with complete purity and holiness, right?
Backing up to tribulation period, you said pre-trib, post-trib, and rapture before or after.
Okay.
What's your personal belief? Is it before or after? Because
I think it's before.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't agree.
Okay. So in that case, then we are raptured, and let's say if we all believe that, we'd all be gone, right?
Yep. Only the church is raptured here. That means Aunt Susie, who was a Christian, going all the way back to Peter, James, John, those guys are. Here, interestingly, that it's only the church that is resurrected here. That means not Abraham, not Isaac, or Jacob.
Oh, really?
Here. Those guys are raptured here. Or not raptured, but resurrected to go into the kingdom. So the church, this is a logical deduction, right? Because it uses the word church and in Christ. So we get the special privilege of being raised prior to these guys. That's a pretty nice privilege.
Yeah.
Okay, but they're all going to get their new bodies, and they'll join us at the kingdom, at the feast. Because, why? In Revelation 19, as the tribulation is ending, the angel says, hey, you need to prepare because the marriage feast of the Lamb is coming, and her bride needs to make herself ready. Okay, she's going to be ready. Well, Israel is the bride of the Father, and the church is the bride of Christ. So there's a whole bunch of reasons where I'm just trying to give you the synopsis that here the bride is the church, which is this new thing that began
The new covenant.
under the new covenant in Acts chapter 2. That's not these. So we're in heaven getting ready. The marriage happens. I think the marriage happens in heaven, Revelation 19. And then we come back down, and the first thing after everything's cleaned up, it's interesting in Daniel 12 and other passages, there's this number, 1,335 days. Right? Interestingly, the tribulation is 7 years long, or 2,520. Divide that by 2. What do you have? 1,360, right? I'm sorry, 1,260. What's the difference between 1,260 and 1,335? 75, right? So now you have this, there's an article I read a long time ago called the 75-day interval, okay? And it's between the start of this 75 days, which is when the Antichrist stops the sacrifices in the middle of the tribulation, that's Daniel 9. It says, blessed are all those who make it to the 1,335th day. Because it's almost as if, okay, 1,260 ends here, so now you have 75 days, right? It takes 75 days for Jesus to clean things up.
And they're talking years.
No, we're talking days. 2.5 months.
Okay.
Okay? It's almost as if the feast to start the kingdom is going to happen on that 1335th day, which is 75 days after Jesus' second coming. Okay? It takes a lot of work to put all this stuff together, you know what I mean? And to bring it all, like 1335, and of course people spiritualize that. That's a day per year, then it becomes 1300 years, and you're like, it says day, 1260 days, time, okay. And I would imagine there's a little bit of cleanup after the Battle of Armageddon, right? The second coming, there's Matthew 25, there's the judgment of the sheep and the goats, right? Blessed are you, you visited me when I was in prison. I didn't visit you in prison. Well, you know, if you did the least of these, you did it to me, right? So there's the judgment of the nations that happened during the 75 days. It takes some time. Okay, not us. We've already stood before the judgment seat of Christ in heaven. This is the judgment of the nations where God gathers them all together in Jerusalem. And then blessed are all those who can survive and make it to the 1335. Because why? If you're an unbeliever and you get into the kingdom, or Jesus comes back, you're standing here as an unbeliever, he's going to say, depart from me. Interestingly, if we take Matthew 25 straight forward, okay, I'll put it over here. Lake of fire is the great white throne. The lake of fire exists right now, right?
In Matthew 25, what?
The whole
thing.
The whole thing. Okay, Jesus comes back. This is a good segue here for us. For a moment, okay? Second coming. Okay, we'll just elevate that up. Okay, at the second coming, you have the Antichrist and you have the false prophet, okay? They get captured. They've had 7 years of reigning, 3.5 years of tremendous ruling and reigning. They get captured, and what happens to them? They get thrown into the lake of fire immediately.
Yeah.
They don't collect $200 when you cross past go. They go straight to the lake of fire. Okay? Because later, after 1,000 years, devil will put him here. Satan released for, I'll just say 3.5 years or short time. Okay? For a short time. Then he's captured and he gets thrown into the lake of fire where the beast and the false prophet are. They're still there. Okay? According to Matthew 25, let's read. You got it, Jerry?
Yeah.
Start maybe, we're going to jump into the middle of it, maybe like around verse 35.
35. Okay. 35 says, for I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or naked and clothe you? When did we see you sick and in prison and visit you? And the king will answer, I tell you the truth, just as you did it for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did it for me. Then I will say to those on his left, depart from me, you accursed, into the eternal fire that has been prepared for the devil and his angels.
So you see that? What happens here?
Eternal fire.
This group,
The separation of the...
they go straight to the lake of fire, this very unique generation. That's rare, just like the false prophet does. And the rest of them, he says to the rest of them, blessed are you, enter into the kingdom that I prepared for you. So they get to go into the kingdom. The other ones go straight to the lake of fire. Where
But the
it's
lake of
eternal
fire
punishment.
is not hell.
Hell is county lockup. Lake of fire is prison.
Okay.
That's a
Permanent.
description.
Okay? County lockup's temporary. You're hanging out. You might hang out there for a while until you get your final sentence. Okay? All right.
Let's thank you.
Yeah, let's pray.
Okay, thanks, Margo.
Father, we thank you, Lord, that you've given us so much in your word. And again, you didn't need to give us any of it, but you did in order to help us be encouraged that Jesus is our brother, and we'll see that next time as it relates to being part of your ruling council and what we get to do and the plans you have for us. And so may that encourage us to continue to fight the good fight of faith, to hang in there, to endure to the end, and to truly seek you and to walk worthy of our calling. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.